Eddie, and good to see you. All right, so we have launched our webinar and we are going live. Let me just take a quick look here and see how many attendees we have. Great. One, two, three. The list is growing. Fantastic. 11. I always know it takes a second for the Zoom to catch up. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the June public meeting of the ANC1B Economic Development Committee. We have 6 of our committee members here. Oh, good. There's Tanya. Hey, Tanya.
Oh,
6 of our committee members here. We'll do roll call in a minute. We have 14 community members online. We are going to, let's just do the quick roll call so that we can start off our meeting officially. I call us to order at 7:05 p.m. Roll call, Krishna Kumar.
Present.
Frank Chauvin.
Present.
Karen Gall is hosting the 3D CAC meeting tonight and is not present. Ian Hawksworth.
Present.
Howard Kurtzman.
Present.
David Martin.
Present.
Tanya Shand.
present.
And Matt Fay, I am here. All right, having quorum, we will continue. 2 items on our agenda tonight. The first is relatively short, but I do want to make sure that we've got, or maybe relatively straightforward, but I do want to make sure that we have the opportunity for a discussion around it with the commissioners and also for the community to provide some feedback. That is a resolution. It is in a draft form right now and is intended to be edited and revised as we talk this evening, asking DPR on behalf of the commission to engage the community in a process of soliciting feedback in the development of plans for a new park at 625T. That is the triangle portion of land that is across the street from Right Proper Brewing, Plug, and the Howard Theater. And that has been or is in the process of being transferred from DEMPED to DPR. And so we anticipate that it will be turned into a park and want to make sure that we are giving an opportunity for engagement around that. We'll start there. And then the second agenda item is probably our meatier item. And that is going to be a broader discussion and really in the format of a public hearing on the development needs, goals, objectives for the 1617 U Street site. There was extensive public discussion, extensive public hearings, meetings with DEMPED on the topic of zoning. But in many of those zoning conversations, the community was told, well, that's a development item. We're going to focus just on zoning tonight. And so what we want to do is to provide a forum for the community to give some feedback related to the development RFP. And we are not planning to draft a resolution tonight. We are not planning on voting on a resolution tonight. The focus here, and this is based upon extensive community feedback, is to provide that forum for discussion, the raising of issues. And if we do have any kind of action item coming out of today, it would be a request for additional information or a request for a more formal hearing to support discussion around the RFP for development. So those are our 2 agenda items tonight. And then, of course, if there are any new agenda items presented by either the committee or by the members of the community, we'll have an opportunity for that discussion at the very end. With that said, what I'm going to do is pull up the draft agenda. Any questions on that agenda from the committee members before we start? Okay. And I am looking. There is actually a panelist with a hand raised. Frank Chauvin, go ahead. Frank, you might still be muted.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to post for the draft agenda. I'm not sure if we've approved it, but that I will be raising a new business piece in case anyone here cares about this issue and they need to stay or need to go and want to come back. But on the matter of a public toilet, a throne toilet proposed for the 7th Street, 600 block of 7th Street, Duke Ellington Plaza. I just want to note that as a piece of business I will be raising at the end of the meeting in new business. Thank you.
Great. And Frank, it will give us all an opportunity for many months to come to have discussions around your potty mouth. So thank you for raising discussions on the public toilet. I think that will be a robust discussion. Any other items that we want to get out there before we dig into the meat of the work? Okay, I'm going to share right here. I'm going to blow this up for many of you who may not be able to see. I'm just going to ask the committee members if they are able to see my screen and if it's legible. Okay, I think getting a thumbs up from Ian, so that's great. I will blow it up one more time, two more times. Okay, so here's the background, and then I want to turn it over to the group for discussion. 625T is a parcel of land that was purchased by the District of Columbia government several years ago. It was purchased with the intent to develop it into some kind of programming or presence. As a result, it was given to DEMPED for management and oversight, the deputy mayor for planning and economic development. They contracted it out to a vendor who did not do any development. There was some activation. There was some light activation with a restaurant setting up an outdoor eating establishment during COVID when social distancing was required. But otherwise, it has largely sat empty. The mayor's office, the deputy mayor's office have determined that the property is not something that they are going to easily activate. They appreciate the importance of it, and especially the importance of where it sits relative to the Howard Theater, residential and business communities. And so they are wanting to activate it, but doing so by transferring the ownership to the Department of Parks and Recreation. What that leads to is the possibility and the likelihood that it will be developed into a park. We understand just this week that the Councilmember Nadeau for Ward 1 has been advocating for funds to be put into the capital budget to support the redevelopment of this park. And we have heard from DPR that once they receive it, it is not a large property. They were not sure at the time if they would have much resources to be able to put into it, and therefore did not anticipate engaging in significant community outreach regarding its future purpose and design and development. And so we're using this as an opportunity, given the many, many years that this property has been in the focus of the ANC1B Economic Development Committee, to voice a strong request and preference for DPR to actively engage both the community and the ANC. There is a note, and I'll get to it in a moment, that we are specifically asking them to engage the Transportation, Parks and Public Spaces Committee of the ANC. And I know that Commissioner Holden is on the call tonight. He chairs that committee. And the reason for that transition is that it's no longer an economic development space, but now an opportunity for parks and green space. And we will continue to work closely with Commissioner Holden and his team, but just wanted to clarify that that's one of the reasons why we are specifically referencing that committee in this resolution. With that said, I'm going to take just a minute to review the resolution language. Krishna, if you don't mind, I sometimes have a hard time seeing the hands in the audience. And so if we have hands that are going up, if you can just kind of keep track of them, and we'll make sure that folks have an opportunity to speak as we get through this. The whereases, of course, are laying the foundation of why we are asking for DPR's attention. And the first is simply stating the location of 625 T Street and highlighting its relationship to the historic Howard Theater and the Duke Ellington Plaza, both of which are part of the Government District of Columbia holdings. Whereas the management of the under the management of the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, the property was underutilized and did not contribute to the public benefit of Ward 1 and Ward 2 communities 4. We'll need to go back and look at the number of years that this was held. That the property being transferred from DEMPED to DPR now allows us to formally kind of look at that as a district park. Whereas funding has been proposed in the capital budget to be able to support the development of a park. These two I would love feedback on. They feel a little bit complainy, but they're also one of the reasons that we're asking for engagement. And so these are the ones to me that I kind of go either side on. The first is past and recent efforts by the community to activate the idle site have been rejected, and that representatives of DPR have suggested that any engagement would be limited. They do highlight a bit of the motivation for having a resolution on this. But I also appreciate that they're not necessarily framed in the positive nature that we like to frame things in our resolutions. And then a simple request in terms of the therefore be it resolved that we, one, support the redevelopment of the site into a district park that would provide public benefit, that we request robust engagement of the community by DPR in the planning and the development of this park. And then finally, that as a part of that community engagement process, the DPR would directly engage both the Committee of Transportation, Parks, and Public Spaces, as well as the full 1B Commission itself. So that is the general nature of the resolution. To the public, I will confess that the committee has had limited time to review this, I think in part because I was dragging my feet on writing it, and in part I was just trying to juggle the third rescheduling of the Shakespeare in the Park event, which is now scheduled for Wednesday, July 2nd at the Meridian Hill Malcolm X Park. So let me start with Howard and welcome your feedback and input.
Sure, Matt. Well, thank you. I think overall this is a great resolution. I did have some recommendations for editing it because I was sensitive to a somewhat antagonistic tone, somewhat in some of the lines there, or blamey, as you said. So I can offer some suggestions now if you'd like.
Yeah, let's do it. And I'm with you. Those were places that I was feeling a bit sensitive to as well. So let's hear it.
Okay, so for the second whereas, I think you can just delete under the management of DEMPED and just say the property has been underutilized and has not contributed, blah, blah, blah.
I think that is helpful. Let me do this really quickly. I just wanted to review. Let me see if I can pull this thing out of the way. Great. Okay, that's good. Yep.
Right. And then you can just it's in the next whereas you could just spell out the DEMPED and make clear that the property is being transferred. That's the major fact that we want to point out. Then jump down to the whereas that past and recent efforts by the community have been rejected.
Yep.
I think one was rejected, the dog park, and I think arguably the city had good reason for that. In other cases, the community, including this group, didn't fully develop proposals for the city to consider. So I think there's enough blame to go around. So I would just take out that whole whereas. I don't think it accomplishes anything anyway, actually. So others may disagree on that. And again, the next whereas, unless you have some kind of documentation that there's been a rejection of engagement, maybe take out that whereas as well. Because if it's just somebody told you on the phone, we're not going to engage the public, I don't know what that counts for. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the line I'm trying to walk here is, I don't disagree, Howard, with that. I think the line I'm trying to walk here is, I don't want to send a resolution to DPR and they say, well, of course, that's what we always do. And I'm fine with that. If they say, of course, that's what we always do, and we say, great, then we're going to hold you to it, then we're fine. And so I think what we can probably do is communicate in a transmittal email or a phone call that this is in part response to things that we have heard from them and that we are asking them to take this seriously, which is why we have put it in the form of a resolution. So I think there's a way of getting that point across.
Right. And you maybe down in the resolves, say something about the nature of the engagement that we're looking for.
Great.
So
I said robust, but I felt like that
that's a little
could be
vague.
expanded. Yep.
Maybe meetings with the ANC or through some other mechanisms. But I think that was all I had. But overall, I think it conveys the message very nicely.
Okay, great. Other feedback, other thoughts, Krishna, go ahead.
Yeah, two things. I think just let me push back a little on what Howard said in terms of the whereas clause, in terms of past recent efforts by the community to activate the idle site, I think Howard is completely correct that the tone doesn't work. The only thing I would say is maybe we should mention that the ANC did pass a resolution on this already in 2024 and just reference that resolution.
I would agree with that. It shows our ongoing interest in this parcel.
Yeah, and it's also the way I'm just thinking about it is a lot of times when it's just helpful when we go back and historically someone in 3 years is going to look at this and they just want to see what the chain of custody in terms of saying, no, the ANC in 2024 passed a resolution here and didn't work out. Let's not, I agree with Howard's tone. Let's not place blame. Sort of a larger macro point. One word that I don't hear in this resolution is about the Duke plan. And Karen and I actually worked on this last year, and I'll just quickly run through the 4 things that I think we found that the Duke plan mentions about this area, and maybe we can find a way to integrate it into this resolution.
Okay.
And these are, I believe, cut and paste from the Duke plan, but I'm not gonna. We may want to verify that before we do that. But 1, embrace Ellington Plaza as front foyer of the theater, Howard Theater, and program with an active calendar of special and community events. 2, design Ellington Plaza to accommodate public gatherings. 3, actively program the public space with regular community and arts cultural events. 4, encourage sidewalk cafes along T Street in preserved buildings. Now, these were not specific recommendations for the site in the Duke plan, but these were sort of the only things we could find in the Duke plan that reference this site. So what I would just maybe add some language, add a whereas saying the Duke plan, is looking for activation here, and that doing something to activate this site would be within the ambit of what the Duke plan envisioned.
Yep. Yep, that's good. I think that's really nice. Krishna, great. All right, Frank, I see your hand up.
I would just concur with everything Krishna just said. I think it's perfectly important to reference the Duke plan. And as we all know, and sometimes we just forget because we seem like we repeat it a lot and to no end. But yes, iterating everything Krishna said. And also, however, I didn't quite follow a criticism made regarding use of this plot having failed to approve a dog park for. There were, I think, 200 people in the neighborhood that signed a petition in support of a dog park. And there's plenty of support, both on the committee that made the decision. Okay, there was, I think, 3 people out of at least 3/4 of that committee contrived of established by it's a public space committee that reviews these for dog parks, and it was overwhelmingly by 3/4 of that committee approved the dog park use, knowing the parameters and the regulations regarding dog park size. So I don't want to underestimate the importance to the community, deep importance to the community, and the approval having been undertaken by the Public Space Committee, established by is it DEMPED? I'm sorry, no, it's was it DPR who runs the dog park? So it was DPR, I think, in this committee establishment. So I just wanted to iterate. I think it's important to look at all of that work that was done and iterate it somehow, because we spent people on this call listening and other people not here tonight spent an inordinate amount of time working on behalf of the community to get this programmed as a dog park, and it's and so it's important to recount that effort or in some way. So I don't want to limit the attention to that detail.
What if
Frank,
we do this? Oh yeah, go ahead.
But just as a point of clarification, you're saying that's not the ANC doing that, that's the DPR committee doing that, right?
Yeah. What if we do this? So point number one, Frank, from you is doubling down on what Krishna said and referencing the Duke plan. Excellent. I like the idea of specific, like I think what Howard had an issue with, Howard, I'll let you speak for yourself, but I think the thing I had issue is that like the language that I used, I'm gonna 100% blame myself. I was being snippy, and I didn't like the tone of it. But I think what you're doing, Frank, is putting it into the positive spin, which is that there was significant community engagement and there was significant community support, and there is a need for ongoing community support. And I think that we can put some language together around the strong level of community engagement around one item and reference the past ANC votes on this to follow that chain of custody. So I think that's probably a good thing to think about how we include. Howard, you had your hand up while Frank was talking, so I got the sense you were going to help respond.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I also would prefer that this be more forward-looking and not focused on past issues. My understanding is that the dog park idea was rejected either by DEMPED or DPR, I'm not sure who, because the space is too small. And I personally agree with that. Well, I've gone to look at it, and maybe little puppies can run around there, but it's not an appropriate space for a large number of large dogs. And we can debate that, but we don't have to do that now. So maybe one way to deal with this is in a therefore mention potential uses, including a dog park, so that we get that idea out there, rather than focus on past discussions of where that idea went.
Okay. I'm going to go to Frank and then Patrick Nelson. Patrick, I tried to promote you to panelist. Let me know if you're having any issues with that. But Patrick Nelson had his hand up as well. So Frank, go ahead, and then we'll go to Patrick Nelson
Yeah, Howard,
from
I,
the
I
audience.
appreciate your clarification there. I like that. But just to correct the facts, which there are quite a few people on, there's probably 30 people, 35 people on this call tonight. The facts are this, that the approval of the dog park was made by the committee that's set up by DPR to review dog park applications. It was approved. Okay, recommended for approval, excuse me, differential, important there, a point of difference that's important. Again, it was recommended that it be approved by 3/4 of that committee. The DPR head, in concert with whomever she listens to and whoever she's instructed to take her orders from, declined to approve it in her own right because she is the arbiter on this. And again, it was based on size predominantly, but also a complaint from a commercial neighbor who didn't want it there because of noise perceived or otherwise. But the DPR does have the authority and the right to exclude or make a decision to institute a dog park, even though it doesn't meet the regulatory minimum requirements, and they have done that in the past. So it's just important for the record and for quite a few people on the call to understand that.
What if we do this? I don't. Again, I don't want to. I don't know. I agree with Howard that I don't want to kind of drag us backward. I agree with Frank in the sense that I want to strongly convey that there's a lot of community engagement around using this park well, and that a lot of people have already put a lot of time into it. Um, and really the goal we're looking for is not to get a dog park or not get a dog park. What we're saying is we want to have very strong, robust, we got to find a better word than that, engagement from DPR with the community so that there is community input reflected in the ultimate design and use of this park. And if that means that it's going to be X or that it's going to be Y dog park or not, what we're saying is we want there to be strong community engagement. I will, if it's okay with the committee, I will go back and wordsmith that and make sure that I remove the snippy tone. It might have been the heat that got to me. It also could be that I actually gotten quite a few emails from folks in the last like week about the lock that went up and the lack of use for dogs. Um, Anything else that folks can add? Oh, Patrick Nelson, did we get to you?
Not yet, but you can avoid me if you want.
There you are. Hey, Patrick. You had your hand raised, and then I'm going to ask people for some feedback on what's better than robust, and then I want to wrap this up at 7:30, and I want to move on to the 16-17 discussion. But Patrick, go ahead.
I just want to take just a few seconds to give a little bit of background history. I know we said we weren't going backwards, but I think it'll help people understand. This lot has been a bone of contention within 1B for eons. The city took over ownership of the property and transferred it to Dembed. And they tried to do a multitude of things. The owner of the building next to it tried to buy it from the city. He wanted to do something with it, and that fell through because he basically wanted them to give it to him. And there has been a number of things that the ANC has done in the past to work to try and get this activated, so to speak. So I just want to put that in the context of it's not just this current stuff that's happening. It's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say, in response to what Krishna said, I don't disagree with his explanation of the Duke plan stuff, but but that relates to, when you're talking about the plaza, that relates to all of the work that was put into the design of the street in front of it and the physical plaza where the statue is. That had nothing to do with the plot of land across the street. It was talking about all of the work that was supposed to go into the street and making it not a paved street, but a cobblestone street and extra wide sidewalks for all of those reasons that he clarified. So I just wanted to explain that. And then my last comment relates to DPR and involvement with the community. They have to, it's part of their edict that when they do any of these projects, whether they're big, small, or intermediate, they have to relate to the community. They have to have public hearings where community input is put in. And and whoever it is that told you that's not going to happen, you need to bring that to the attention of the director of DPR that was told to you, because that's a bold-faced lie. That they have to. I mean, I know that from experience. I went through that with the Bruce Monroe Park when that was done, and prior to that, getting turned over to DPR, and it's happened in other places around the city where it's just normal city operation. So I would not take that as gospel truth from whoever told you that.
Great. Patrick, as always, thank you very much for the perspective and the depth of knowledge. Let's do this. I think there's probably two things that are going to require additional work. So one is, I like the idea, even in light of what Patrick said, I like the idea of referencing those Duke elements because I think it speaks to the spirit of that larger space and what that kind of area is trying to accomplish. I like the idea of referencing kind of the past community engagement to, just indicate the level of enthusiasm and commitment to using this space well and putting it to good use for the public. So I think what I might be asking is that if we are able to vote on this in just a minute, with a little bit of leeway for me to kind of finesse those two elements and commit that I won't be snippy in the language, then I'll take those back, send a draft around to the committee members that you can comment on. And then we'll put a final version in front of the commission for next Thursday. Before we wrap up and do a vote, I'd love some thoughts on what would be better than just robust. And again, I think folks can feel free to email me. I will also reach out to Commissioner Holden and ask him for some input, because I'd like to get his guidance on some of the specific engagement that he and that committee would like to get. But if there are additional comments on robust right now, I'm happy to take them and incorporate them. Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve this draft resolution to advance for consideration to the full commission next Thursday, giving the chair some leeway to wordsmith past community engagement on the use of the park and to finesse the relationship to the Duke plan.
I move that.
Okay, great. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor? Frank,
Yes.
Tanya,
Yes.
Krishna, we'll come back to Krishna. Ian,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Krishna. Krishna
Yes.
might be okay, great. I was thinking you might be caught up in the things you were having to get done.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So with that said, sorry, go ahead, Howard.
No.
Okay,
I'm glad it
perfect.
passed.
Okay, perfect. And then sorry, Patrick, I'm trying to take you off of a panelist, so we'll get to that in just a minute. All right, so with that said, we're going to move on to the larger topic of the day, which is feedback to the Deputy Mayor of Planning and Economic Development's office related to the RFP for 1617 U Street. And so I know there's a lot of folks on the line today who are interested in commenting on that. Oh, Tanya, you might need to mute. A lot of folks who want to comment on that. There's a couple of kind of ground rules that I'm going to put out there and ask for folks to consider as they are talking, and then we'll have folks raise their hands and we will start to go through it. I am going to quickly pull up the prior resolution that was passed by the ANC in its last term. There was, in fact, one resolution that was passed related to the RFP. My review of it, others on this committee have suggested that it's a good resolution. So it's not that we want to throw things out. And the current commission has conveyed that they are happy to include some of those items again, just because it's a new commission and they want to reaffirm some of those items. But I think the general sense is that although those items were good and the work was good, there is still more that needs to be said. The second thing that folks have said is that we haven't had a forum to be able to talk about this and to raise specific issues, concerns, and objectives. And so we want to make sure that we're creating that space. Here's the ground rules that I'm going to ask for. The first is that I'm going to try to limit comments to about 2 minutes. And that's not to cut people off. It's just to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. And if you get to the end of your 2 minutes and we get through everybody that wants to make a comment, you can have 2 more minutes. And you can have 2 more minutes after that. But I do want to make sure that everybody's got time to speak. And so I know that means we don't have time for people to talk for 10 minutes at a time. The second thing that I'm going to ask is that we don't revisit the zoning element. So there was a lot of conversation on zoning, the concept of the heights, the massing, the density, the setbacks, the step downs. All of that was already presented on, considered, and I understand that the zoning board has already made a decision on that, and they are finalizing the decision. If people feel very, very strongly about the decision of the zoning board, it is appealable, no small feat, but it is appealable. That is a part of the law and a part of the process. But tonight, I don't want to spend time revisiting zoning. I really want to spend time talking about elements of the development RFP. If there are linkages where people say, hey, look, when we talked about zoning, we talked about a specific element of development, and I want to make sure that that is picked up in this RFP, then please raise that, right? That's certainly on the table. And then I think the last request, it's not really a rule, but the last request is if you can be as precise as possible in your comments, that helps a lot, right? So if the comments are, gosh, we'd really like to see more affordable housing, on one hand, that's useful. But if what we're talking about is 80% of AMI, that's one level of affordability. If we're talking about 30% of AMI, that's a completely different level of affordability. And so being able to kind of make your comments as precise as possible, I think is going to help us capture the detail that we need to capture in order to make. Hey, Krishna, let me see if I can just mute him. Hold on. All right, I just muted Krishna. That'll help us. What's that, Tanya?
And Tanya.
Yeah, we'll mute her too. All right. It's not lost on me the irony of me asking people for input and then muting everybody on the committee. So there we go. What I'm going to do is now turn to commissioners and as well to the audience. Matthew Holden, I saw your hand go up, and so I'm opening up your microphone. If you would like to start with any comments or suggestions, you are welcome. And in the meantime, I'm going to be pulling up this prior resolution by the commission. So Matthew Holden, Commissioner for 1BO, is it 8?
7.
7. Oh, that was actually my first choice. I'm sorry about that. 1BO7, which includes 1617 U Street and its area. Please, you have the floor.
Great. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here tonight to hear the discussion. I think a lot of the work that was done on the prior RFP resolutions is great. I think one thing that I would like to see be included in a future resolution, helping to inform the RFP, is some language about the ownership of the land. So even if we end up with a mix of uses, municipal and maybe some housing or retail or other non-municipal or public uses, I think if the city maintains ownership of the land and does potentially like a ground lease or some sort of other arrangement, that would just help the city keep a hold of land in the neighborhood and have the potential to renegotiate leases or do other things with the land in the future if needs were to change. So I think some language about that could be beneficial.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. And I know that last month when Daniel Lyons from DemPed attended, there were a number of people who voiced a similar concern and a number of committee members as well as community members who were wanting to make sure that the district retained ownership of the land. Okay, perfect. Matthew, I'm just going to leave your mic open because you are the commissioner for single member district that this is in. So
Okay.
Howard Kurtzman, your hand is up. Okay,
Yeah.
Howard's hand is down. Frank, go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
So,
Okay, great. Thanks.
I also think that the ANC has done a great job in its previous resolutions. Can I keep on?
Yeah, we can see you and we can hear you.
I think I lost my connection.
No, you're back. Wait, but now
Oh,
he's
okay.
frozen.
Sorry. Yeah, I thought the ANC. All right, go to Frank.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing a little bit of a lag. Frank, go ahead and we'll come back to Howard.
Yes, I
How about
ditto.
now?
We're gonna let Frank go first, Howard, and then we'll get back to you, and that'll give you a chance to get your internet connection reconnected.
I ditto Commissioner Holden's comment regarding ownership. I think I will be proposing in a changed
Sure.
or a new edit when it comes to the table or before that we in fact require. I mean, I know that's not the word we're going to use, but continued public DC city ownership of that parcel, and I think that's an important financing piece for a millennia here for the benefit of the residents of the District of Columbia, maintaining that ownership. And but partially it's because the continuing ownership of the land bestows very real and important opportunities to rebuild our affordable housing program here that's failing here in the city. One, the supposed fix to affordable housing undertaken, inclusionary zoning, has failed. We're not filling those housing. I understand there's a set of properties as reviewed by the city is it the city auditor or the city administrator? A
City auditor.
I think, that shows we're not filling these properties. So what good are they? Nobody's monitoring this program. It's a failure. We're not being benefited by that program. Secondly, 30%, I think was the last figure, of DCHA's properties are vacant. Not unlike lots of affordable housing administrations around the country. I think NYCHA, New York, I think has a similar mirroring problem. 33% of vacancies because they don't have the money to maintain them. They're ill suited for health. They're moldy, rat infested, etc. We have that problem. We're failed by the current program, and we need substantial and, might I say, not revolutionary, but a radical change. And I think that establishing a property on publicly owned land to be a third affordable, maybe a third very affordable, a third workforce, and a third market rate would establish some type of ability to better pay for affordable housing from here to eternity. And also, not unclear or not unsubstantiated, that a mixed use affordable dwelling is better than an all affordable dwelling for cultural reasons, to maintain public safety, to maintain a learning environment where people that are less well off can become better well off by seeing neighbors prosper, okay, by living with them. And so mixed affordability is immensely benefited by maintaining ownership of that property. Thank you.
Wow, Frank, you got 6 seconds left. That was nicely done. Debbie Hanrahan. Debbie Hanrahan. Let me make sure I got you up there. Okay. You should be able to talk. Okay, hold on a second. So Debbie Hanrahan, you should be able to speak. Greg Adams, I see your hand up next. So I'm going to have to ask you to unmute.
Yeah. Okay. Should see if you're okay.
There we go, Debbie.
No,
we can hear you.
Thank you. I just wanted to add some information about the AMI. As currently recorded, our AMI is listed at $162,000 a year as the income. So 80% of AMI is $129,000. That is hardly affordable housing. When you get down to 30% of AMI, you're more in the ballpark. You're talking about serving people whose income is $48,600 a year. So when we talk about 80% AMI, it's really not affordable, and I think we need to realize that's a hangover from the days when the AMI was much lower and 80% was subsidized housing, but today it's upper middle class housing.
Great. Thank you, Debbie. And I think I've heard from a number of folks that one of the elements that people really want to make sure that they're including in the RFP is more specificity around true affordable housing, which I think is taking us very quickly from what a lot of folks put into applications as 80% to something more in line with what you're referencing at the 30%.
Right. And if I could just double up on what Mr. Holden is saying, he is really describing social housing when he talks about a third.
That might be Frank Chauvin who was talking about that.
I'm sorry. Okay.
We pick on Frank a lot, so we like to give him credit for his good ideas.
Yes. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Debbie. Greg Adams, you should be able to talk.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, Matt. Basically, I'll just be seconding what Frank had to say and what Debbie had to say, and just point out that one of my main concerns is the fact that in this process, and related to what Debbie just said about affordable, we have to keep in mind that the racial wealth gap in this city is tremendous, and that Black and brown people on this side of the river are finding it tremendously difficult to stay on this side of the river. And so that any discussion of what happens to 1617 U Street, I think it's important that we keep in mind that there is a racial equity component to planning in the city that was ignored during the zoning process and should not be ignored during the process of trying to decide what happens at 1617 U Street. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Great. And then Greg, I mean, if you I don't know if you want to kind of expound on it here or whether it's something you're willing to email me on separately. But I'd be curious to get your thoughts about how that principle gets written into an RFP. Because again, what I'd like for us to do is to capture the community priorities. And then I would like to be able to, then write that into something that feels fairly specific, so that it does in fact provide a degree of guidance. So if that's something you're willing to email me about or schedule a follow-up, I'd love to, pick your brain a little bit more on that. Let's see. It looks like it's, oh, I apologize. Danielle Bryan. So you had your hand up. You're next.
Yes, thank you. I also want to support what Gregory, my neighbor from across the street, and Debbie said in making sure that we're talking about actually affordable housing. And I just want to add an asterisk that also that we should be thinking about family-sized housing and not just what we're seeing, which is typically efficiencies in one bedroom. And I don't know whether it's appropriate to be raising any concerns about transportation in the RFP. Is that something that's even to be discussed? The concern that I have about the mix of municipal fire and police as well as residential and commercial, given the fact that two of the sides of the three accesses are one-way roads.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you raise it so that it's on the record? Because then that way I can go back and capture everything, and then where we've got questions, we'll follow up with folks.
That would be great. I mean, there hasn't been a serious transportation study on the implications of how is that even navigated, plus the delivery vehicles getting in the way of fire and police. Right now, 17th Street, those of you who live on it know the fire is always going up backwards the one way. How does that happen when you're adding all of the traffic from commercial and residential, and have they considered all of that? And then my last two quick points were making sure that there's some architectural acknowledgement of the historic surroundings of Stivers section and Frederick Douglass's ownership of properties across the street, and that the green space not be given up to what is currently just allowed to be the police parking on the green space and turning it into just dust.
Got it. Okay, great. And I have a particular sympathy for the one-way streets, having printed off multiple sets of signs for this Shakespeare in the Park event, and I just drove in circles until I finally found the road that went two ways. So thank you for raising that. Next hand up is Chris O.
Hello.
Hey, we can hear you.
Oh, hey, Commissioner. Okay. I guess I'm a little confused. I know we're going into some thoughts here about like what people in this room want, but I think what we learned from zoning is that, there is a tremendous weight and resources found in DEMPED to do kind of what they're doing up in Chevy Chase for the last 6 to 8 months, which is like a deliberate community outreach process with 3 or 4 charrettes, conversations down at the library, at the community center, which we could probably do at Marie Reed, and like have a deliberate conversation far beyond the reach of volunteer commissioners. As much as this is important, I really think the ANC should ask DEMPED to step up where they have failed so far. I know they keep saying that, at least Mr. Lyons says that he's had numerous conversations about this, but as we all remember, anytime most of us brought things up at meetings about a project, we were told there's no project before us. We can't talk about a project. That was said to us a million times at zoning. I know this ANC has, despite that, taken a stab at it, and we're going to further delve into it. But I think the ANC should really ask DEMPED to step up and use the resources they have. If they could do it in Chevy Chase, they should be able to do it here. Second comment is AMI. The AMI is going up every year. So any affordability metric based on AMI is an unaffordability metric. It's now the 50% AMI level, according to even the numbers Debbie Hanrahan mentioned tonight. You're now talking the 50% AMI number is above the median income for most Black residents in the city. So, you know, we're talking about public land. This isn't like a private land deal, obviously. And so we have a chance to use public land and air rights to repair the displacement harms of the past. And that gets me back to the point about, I think it opened up with leasing the air rights. If we lease the air rights, we've seen the leasing regime under DEMPED, and that is a 99-year lease at $1 a year, effectively giving away the land, the economic engine of that asset, that property. And I think it's imperative we hold on to the air rights. And that doesn't mean we can't lease some of it away, like the commercial spaces, as we saw over at the Laureate. Obviously, the bottom floor is leased out to some coffee shops and a medical place. But I think I think the housing for sure needs to be pinpointed at social housing. And we need to take that on as the mechanism to not just provide lots of housing supply and not just lots of truly affordable housing, but and a revenue generator for us instead of some developer who will take that revenue and do whatever they want with it. Maybe maintain the building, maybe not. We know what would happen if it comes back to us. And that is to protect the community living there. So those are my comments for now.
Great. Chris, thank you. And Krishna, I see your hand is up. Let me just make one quick comment on Chris's comments. Chris, there's a couple of things, right? And you and I've kind of talked a little bit about this. One is I am very happy to work with DEMPED to hold a hearing at a public space like Murray Reed and to get the community together to be able to have a robust discussion. What they said to us in our last meeting was, if you guys have additional information to share, have the ANC communicate to us. And one of the things we could communicate as an ANC is that we'd like to have you out and we'd like to have a sit-down discussion about the elements. And one of the things that I wanted to do is to ensure that we were at least starting with this meeting and with the group of folks who attend, which is pretty significant, to be able to solicit input and to be able to make that request of DEMPED if that's what we needed to do, with the legitimacy of having sought and gotten community feedback. So I don't see this as the one opportunity, and I'm open to feedback, and I'm hoping that folks reach out as we go through this. I'm going to turn to Krishna and then to Howard. And one of the things that I would actually also like to hear from this group is any feedback around the kind of the future of MPD and fire. That was something that was very strongly communicated in the previous resolution from the ANC in 2024. I think there have been concerns raised by members of the community about what happens during the transition period. And so would love to just get some input there. Let's go to Krishna first, then to Howard, then to Ian, and I'm continuing to pay attention to hands in the audience as well. Krishna, you're up.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I actually sort of two things. One is, as I sort of indicated in the pre-call, I'm going to have to sign off. I mean no disrespect to the committee and to everyone who has showed up today. I will review the rest of the meeting afterwards to try to capture what everyone is saying. And I just want to say how much I appreciate everyone showing up again to talk about this. And if you don't mind, could I ask a question to Chris Otten? I was just wondering, is that still possible?
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm going to give him the chance to speak.
He's still here.
But go ahead, ask your question. He is still here.
Well, what I just wanted to pick Chris's brain on is I'm sure most people saw that there was a recent article in the Post about the high cost of affordable housing in the district, where they were citing examples from Adams Morgan, where Jubilee Development, who is a big nonprofit developer there, is looking at some very, very expensive costs to build affordable housing. And there's a number of reasons for that. But one of the tensions in that is exactly what we've been talking about, which is that in order to build housing at these 30% AMI requires more money from the developer. In order to build larger family style units requires more money from the developer. And, I just wanted to pick Chris's brain and sort of see what he thinks about that tension. I'd be curious to get his take on that. But I also wanted to just highlight that this is a dilemma across the city in terms of how to balance those two. And it's certainly come up before. I agree, conceptually, we have too much affordable one-bedroom housing, which doesn't really meet the needs of people in DC necessarily. It's great for some people, but it's not really maybe not meeting the needs of everybody.
Chris, I'm going to give you 2 minutes because I know you could talk about this topic for an hour.
Oh, no, I can't actually. Will Merrifield can, and I think he should be tapped to really edify this conversation with ANC at some point. He's with the Center for Social Housing. And I know Debbie and Rondell and others in the group hosted a meeting back in February where he spoke, and there's video from that where he kind of lays this out. I think like a 10-minute video, Krishna, that I would love to send to you to really kind of cover sort of the tension you're talking about. I think the bottom line is this. Jubilee is a private developer, and any private developer we may turn the air rights over to has to go to the private market, Wall Street, private equity markets, where the money is quite expensive. And so the whole point of a municipally owned model is that you make it a lot more efficient by making the construction costs a lot cheaper, because the access to money is a lot cheaper. And it's less about, building a building and whoever's in it is, building a building is separate from whoever's in it and the revenue that's generated. So like the cost of building a building, whether it's for millionaires or lots of poor people, is going to be probably the same, depending on when you do it, when you start. The big back end cost is the loan and how much money it costs to get the money to build it. And that's where municipally owned housing sort of really outsmarts and outworks the private developer class, because the money is a lot cheaper to build the building. Now, in terms of the revenue coming in, that's a different question. As we saw with the Laureate, it is a model right now. That particular project, that was their first one. And so 70% of the units there are market rate units. 30% are so-called affordable. And it's affordable at 30% of your income. It's not based on an AMI, which is completely devoid of any attachment to real people's income. It's 30% of your income. And so if you make $30,000 a year, it's $10,000 a year. If you make $300,000 a year, it's $30,000 a year. So it's sort of an equation that guarantees, like the project itself, and this is where DEMPED's involvement is so critical, to kind of do a pro forma to get a sense, of construction costs. How much is it going to cost if we have a private developer build it versus us, and how much cheaper we can build it for, and then how much we can refinance it.
Chris,
Yep.
I am gonna cut you off. I knew you could go for hours on this.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it all makes sense, but I think we're also getting into a lot of details that we're not going to include in the RFP. But if you don't mind sending that video, I've had the pleasure of meeting that expert as well, thanks to you and to Debbie. But if you can send that video to Krishna, that'd be great. Howard,
Matt, reason why, just real quick though, the reason why it's important for the RFP is it will determine whether or not we recommend and ask DEMPED to shape this RFP in a way that where we give away the air rights to a private developer to go that route, that expensive route, or we maintain those air rights and do municipally owned housing and 100%. Do it in a much more efficient way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Sorry, where I was cutting you off was around the details of the financing, which I think are critical. And we'll talk more about it. Let me turn it to Howard, and then Ian, you're up next.
Thanks. So many potential uses for this site have been raised in the discussions over the last year or so. it seems to me that the primary ones are for affordable housing, for a police station, and for a fire station. And I think there's broad consensus and strong agreement in the community, that's my sense, that the site should include those. And then there are other suggestions that have been offered, a library, a park, retail, other government services. And I think I don't think it's possible to have all of these things at that site. There are space limitations, there's traffic issues, noise issues, compatibility issues. I'm still not sure how the residents are going to be protected from the noise of the fire engines, things like that. We may want to, the ANC may want to somehow prioritize these additional uses or come up with some principles. For example, perhaps additional functions should be included only if it can be demonstrated that they will not interfere with, that they're fully compatible with the primary functions of the site. That may be one approach. But we're not going to get everything there. That's the point I'm raising. And so people may want to think more about what are their priorities and how they want to balance the various possibilities. Thanks.
Great. No, I think that's an excellent suggestion in terms of process. And I think it also, forces us to kind of look at the reality that as big as that plot of land is, it cannot accommodate everything and it cannot accommodate everything harmoniously. So I think that's a good idea to adopt a framework and to explore that with the community. Ian, you're up.
Thank you. Lots of good debate here. Let me start my comment by saying, at least that's the what I'm saying now is the experience from my country, which is Denmark, is that all over the world, social housing suffers from the fact that land is expensive in the areas where people want to live, such as Adams Morgan, and you can't really get around that. The way to get around it is through taxation and subsidy. If you do that, if there's taxation and subsidy in the deal, you can start to do what you want to do. I'm not sure there's that much appetite for doing that in DC, but I would support it if that was the case. So that's the world we live in. There's something you can do on financing, but it's not much. The risk-free rate is still 5, and that's probably best case in financing. So anyway, can I just applaud for Howard's point, saying it can't be a plot for everything. I strongly support the first responders, that they can stay. I think that came out very clearly from the long and passionate discussion that was associated with the zoning. So let me put that on the record. I think that is a strong community ask. And there's some anxiety on whether that is actually the intention. And I'm skeptical, and I'm very happy to be proven wrong, but I'm skeptical. So that's priority number 1. We already talked about social housing. I won't get into that. I would like to also argue for green, sustainable, open. You go downtown, you can see, rather than the city, the streets flooding, they have these kind of open pits where there's there are trees and the water goes down and there's no flooding and so on. So I think a point on the RFP on green, sustainability, openness, etc. would be helpful. Issues around balance, around, I'm not talking about height here, but I'm kind of am sort of bustling, tall down by U Street, more human sized at the other end. Could also solve some of the problems around living on a fire station. Well, if you're at the other end of the lot, you're probably going to be okay with some good design. And then sort of also a point is about openness, in the sense of some buildings we see, new developments, are kind of closed around themselves like a fortification, and they get around this issue of open space by kind of elevating it, and it becomes a very sort of monolithic and a quite aggressive building. There was a previous point about respecting the community and some of the historic sites that are around here. So I would argue that that's also worth putting in the resolution. Thank you.
Sorry, I had muted. Good. No, that's great, Ian. Thank you. And I think those are good points. Are there any other I wanted this to be an opportunity for folks to raise, any concerns or issues that they have. I said to Chris that this does not have to be the one and only. And so if there is a, desire or a need to have a kind of another meeting that formally includes DemPed representatives for feedback and discussion, happy to coordinate that. One of the things as well that we know is that when the proposals come in, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for community feedback and community discussion. And I think what this group is saying is, well, before the proposals come in, we want to make sure that we're communicating what are the things that are most important to us, so that at least the proposals are oriented around those things that are the most important. While DemPed is juggling other kind of technical details like MPD and fire needs. I am also trying to balance between what I suspect is an inevitable release of an RFP after the zoning orders are finalized and released. And so the timeline that I have in my head is that we have this conversation tonight. We will put together a draft resolution that we will be circulating for feedback, and that we would be voting on that draft resolution to help inform the priorities of the RFP at the July meeting. That would be July of this committee meeting, and then it would be the early August meeting of the full commission. So I think that's the timeline that we have to follow to make sure that at least our priorities are communicated to DemPed before anything is released. And then I think that we can always add additional resolutions, but I think our timeline is going to be relatively constrained. Frank, I'm going to go to you, but I also want to make sure that folks in the community have another opportunity to raise their hands. And I also want to make sure that folks know that they can email, any of the committee members directly. I had an opportunity to email all of you, I think last week, because we were changing the date of this meeting to accommodate the holiday last week, Juneteenth on the 19th. And so I encourage all of you to email me directly, as many of you already have. And that way I can, incorporate the feedback from folks and identify and pressure test themes as they're coming in. That said, Ian, is your hand still up from before? Or did you have another comment you wanted to make? And you might be muted.
I just wanted to ask about the process regarding whether we can ask for or expect or an answer from DemPed on the resolution that we're creating, or if that's not possible or normal, or since you were talking about process, sorry to inject more of this stuff.
No. Good point. So, there's two things. One is the generic point of great weight. So, the District of Columbia agencies are required to give great weight to the ANCs. That said, they often provide some guidance as to how that great weight will be most effective, what form, et cetera. And what Daniel Lyons shared with us is that the most effective way for him to receive and to prioritize feedback is in the form of a resolution from the commission. And so I am kind of rising to that particular invitation and saying, if you are saying that you are happy to receive additional detail from the community in the form of a resolution from the commission, got it. That's what we'll do. And so that's why I wanted to make sure we got the feedback. I will, once we have a resolution, get time with him to sit down and to review that and to discuss it and to answer any questions. And frankly, I will probably also share a draft with him in advance to say, is there anything here that's not clear? Is there anything that we could clarify better so that it is, guidance that can be useful to him and to his colleagues? And so we'll do some rounds of kind of checking with folks to make sure that what we're putting together is useful, it's in the right format, it has the right degree of specificity. And even if someone says, well, we can't do that, that's fine, right? It's still going to be something that we'll communicate as a priority, but we still want to make sure that we're doing it in the right form and with the right, level of pressure testing and validation, I guess. So that's the thought that I've got on that, and so that's part of what's informing this rough process. Frank, your hand is up. And then seeing no other hands, we're gonna close out this component and we're gonna go to Frank's new business item as well as any others that we might have. So Frank, any final comments on the 1617 topic?
Actually, Ian raised the point that I had raised before about Great Weight, Matt and Commissioner, and you heard me raise the issue regarding Great Weights. And I'm not certain that this commission or any commission, I don't know enough about other commissions. I've been around this commission for 6 years. I don't know that we pressed what great weight means. And I think, I'm not an attorney, but reviewing the authorizing legislation that says an ANC shall be given great weight, as I think it's been interpreted to mean they shall respond in writing. So, regardless of what Mr. Lyons from DEMPED says and how he will process our resolution and review, I think we need to press, and I don't think we ever have pressed before, that great weight will mean replying to the provisions we ask for directly and succinctly as to, if they don't accept them, why they do not work. And so, I've been thinking about this for a year in the sense we're not giving great weight by DEMPED. Maybe they feel, that we're not giving great weight. We don't deserve it. But they don't need to do it. I don't know. That's the case. But I would like to assert that we get a written response in writing on all of the motion provisions. That's what great weight is. I don't know. Anyway, I'll raise this again, and it's just raising this now for a further understanding and review by folks sitting here and the commission.
Yep. Yeah, no, Frank, I think it's a fair question. I think it's a really important question. And I think that we can make a more formal request as to the nature of the response that we would like from DEMPED. I know that DDOT does a very good job of responding in writing point by point. It doesn't mean that they always agree, and it doesn't mean that they always give us the things that we want. But it does create a response, and it creates a degree of conversation back and forth. So let's dig into that. Patrick is probably weighing in with some sage advice here. Patrick, you're muted.
You're bringing up a valid point, Frank, in the sense of what is considered great weight and what is not. But my experience in the years that I've been involved in the ANC is that some of the committees or departments will respond on their own, but if you really want a response, you need to ask for it. And based on my experience in dealing with a number of projects, and Frank, you already know this, dealing with DEMPED in 1B, they will not voluntarily respond to anything until you ask them. You really need to push them on it. So if you're going to send a resolution that has X, Y, and Z as your things of importance, you need to ask the person who's, I can't remember his name, specifically, please respond to all of the points that we have in this resolution so we know where DEMPED stands.
Yep. No, Patrick, I think that's right. And I think that essentially what the resolution does is it formalizes a position. My interpretation of great weight is the great weight comes from its source is the process that we go through, the engagement that we do, and the careful scrutiny of these different ideas. We don't write resolutions that have out of left field requests. They are thoughtful requests that have been vetted with the community, that have been discussed with commissioners, and that are then formalized into a request to the agency. But I also agree with you that the great weight is exercised by then actively engaging with the agency. And I think that's what we would need to do here in the case of DEMPED, and specifically with Daniel Lyons. And I know that he is open to conversation, but I think he's also looking to make sure that what we are raising to him is something that the broader community is looking for. And again, that's why we're looking for the feedback. One final, go ahead.
To Matt, that I'm just speaking from my experience, and Tanya can attest to this. The DEMPED department in and of itself needs to be prodded continuously, and having a relationship with a DEMPED person is a good thing, but you need to, for loss of better loan, keep his hand on the grindstone, as they say, because asking and getting are two different things. And that there's been a number of projects that have been done in 1B that we have had to hound them continuously to get them to do what they want to do. When they did the Grimke site, we went round and round and round and round with them and had a lot of discussion, both community input and meetings that ANC did. And we still ended up having stuff that was told to us that they never followed up. So just keep that in mind.
Yep. No, Patrick, thank you. I think that's really helpful. Chris, your hand was up. One last comment, and then we're going to move on to the last item or items, new business.
Right on. Thank you, Matt. I'm a former commissioner myself, and basically I spoke with Johnny Barnes, who helped write the Home Rule Act, and particularly this section of the act about the ANC back in 1973. But basically, you know, just as a contrast, like conjuring up general things that the community wants and putting that in a resolution for DEMPED, I can see how they can say, all right, well, yeah, you'll see the RFP and you'll see how we've responded, versus like acute things that can be asked maybe alongside those general wants that are like acutely clear of like an ask of DEMPED. This commission's already done that. It's asked for a displacement study, and DEMPED has never responded to that. That was in the 2024 resolution. But like, I was talking to Gregory Adams after I saw the letter sent to you, Matt, and you know, it's clear, like DEMPED said at your meeting in May, they're moving away from the hour RFP process suddenly for 1617U, even though they're doing it right now for Chevy Chase. So a very clear ask of them is they should reply with specificity in writing, according to the ANC law. Why are they moving away from that for our property? Like that, you know, we take it at their face. Oh, I guess they're just moving it away, but they're supposed to provide a rationale. And I think like that's the power of the ANC, is that we can ask for them. We're not going to be able to change their minds perhaps, but they should provide a rationale for why they're doing things. And I think a couple other things was like asking them for a pro forma of the site. How much is it going to take to move the fire and police stations for X amount of years and move back? Have they done any of that planning? That's all information we should probably have already on the table. It's been years since they introduced the idea. So these are sort of asks that are acute, that are defined, that the ANC could put in a resolution that they have to respond to in writing with specificity. And I certainly support the ANC doing that. And I think Frank and others are right on with that sentiment.
Yeah, no, I think putting some specific requests and the email that you all sent, I thought was very helpful and also super detailed. But asking for those studies to be produced and asking them to share that analysis and ask them to share essentially kind of what their analysis of relocating and moving different services and how that's going to impact the community, you know, during any kind of potential transition. I think those are concrete asks that should have concrete products. And to your point, I think those are the types of things that are very specific and actionable that the ANC could request and get action on. And I will put together kind of a request to the commissioners in advance of next Thursday to ask about, you know, getting some follow up on things that have already been requested, and then, you know, resubmit those requests to DEMPED for action. So I think that's a good reminder, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Frank Chauvin, new business.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I just learned earlier in the week that there is Ward 1 council member has ascertained agreement from, I believe, two other council members to support budgeting for four additional thrones throughout the district, in addition to the five or six existing throne public toilets. And in what I've seen for just description of where the intention is by our Ward 1 council member is to put it on the Duke Ellington Plaza, which says to me it's the location by the Duke Ellington statue in at the end of the 600 block of T Street. And I sort of believe that this intention with programming a public toilet, which many in the community believe is needed for various reasons, it may not be. The intention of putting in the Duke Ellington Plaza is to respond to the 7th and T drug epidemic, the use and sales at 7th and T, and the public defecation, but the decades of problems going on at 7th and T, which after 2.5 years, the T Street Task Force, with the mayor's office and pressure from Cleveland Elementary School parents, that it now is almost pretty clean, 7th and T, of the problem we've been trying to get rid of. It's been dispersed. I believe it's been reduced in the area, but it's also been dispersed. And I think it's been dispersed just north of Florida on the Howard University property outside of their hospital. It's been moved south to the 7th and R metro station, and also south of that to the library. And I think just proposing that those locations be looked at as an alternative to the location off of 7th and T on Duke Ellington Plaza, to where we might be bringing back the problem that we've spent 2.5 years sitting at tables once a month trying to clean up with some great progress, and putting it at that location would be backward. So I just wanted to raise this issue and see where we might go from here as a resolution from our committee and the commission, and or further review of this matter. Thank you.
Questions or comments? I see a couple of hands raised. John Shaw, you're first, and Alex Padro, you will be next.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. No, I'm actually in the adjoining ANC and the adjoining ward on Wiltberger Street, and I can tell you that there is zero support for any type of public toilet on Duke Ellington Plaza. I don't know whether this group is aware, and I'm sure Alex will corroborate this, but the building on the corner has been commemorated as Cecilia's, as an important institution in Black Washington history. But the third building, which the facade was preserved, was Duke Ellington's sign company. So it is an integral part of the history of Duke Ellington and that plaza. The plaza doesn't have a name just because it has a name of Duke Ellington. It's because there's a historical building there, which was his sign company. Apparently, he was involved in a sign business before he became a famous musician, or concurrent with his being a famous musician. So to turn the park and the potential of the park across the street into a public toilet, I think that the other ward and the adjoining ANC should be consulted. And I promise you there is absolutely no support for doing a public toilet in either of those two sites. So that's my comment.
Great. John,
thank you very much thank you very much for allowing me to talk.
No, thank you. And you know, ward boundaries are in fact made up. We're all still neighbors, so it's good to have you here, and good to meet you. Alex,
well,
go ahead. Sorry.
I've long said that it is a means of divide and conquer, to divide us up into wards and ANCs. I think it dilutes our potential as neighbors and our potential to be able to consult with these things. And just for the group to know, I am the oldest person living on Wiltberger Street currently, and I am also the longest lived person, the longest resident of Wiltberger Street. There used to only be 7 houses and 7 residents. And when I moved there 25 years ago, I was the youngest and the shortest lived on Wiltberger, and now the roles have very much reversed. So I think I speak with a knowledge of the other people on the street, and also of their desire not to have toilets on either of those sites, the Triangle Park or the Duke Ellington Park.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before Alex speaks, I just want to clarify to the group that this particular topic not only is new business, it's breaking business. I think that this was only revealed or announced just yesterday. And so there's a reason why we don't have any kind of resolution drafted for this. But I'm going to let Alex speak, and then we can talk about some immediate steps that we can take in terms of reaching out to the council member's office. So Alex, go ahead.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
We can. Yep.
Great. Thanks. So, as folks may or may not be aware, the T Street Task Force, when it was first formed, had as an objective to locate a throne on the 600 block of T Street to try to address a severe issue that was related to the drug use on the block, which was the public defecation and urination problem in the alleys, at the entrances to businesses, etc. Thankfully, because of a lot of hard work by multiple agencies and a lot of people on this call, as Frank indicated, this situation has abated. However, it has shifted. And right now, at the Walter T. Daniel Library in ANC2G, immediately to the south of 1B, they've had to actually close the lower level where the bathrooms are located because of all the problems that have been encountered there by people that are ODing in the bathrooms, abusing the bathrooms. I won't get into all the nasty details of what's going on there, but DC Public Library had to actually close that floor because of the problems with the bathrooms. So there's a great need for a throne at 7th and R Streets. And recently, within the past year, Lincoln Westmoreland Housing, which owns the Channing Phillips building there at the northwest corner of 7th and R Streets, removed several benches and chairs that had been set up that were being abused by the folks that had been displaced from 7th and R. I think that we should work with our Ward 2 council member to consult with the property owner at Lincoln Westmoreland Housing to try to locate the throne there, because there's obviously a demonstrated current need, while the need does not appear to be currently present at 7th and R. So as a commissioner on 2G, I would pledge to work with my colleague Howard Garrett, who's the single member district commissioner over there, to engage with the property owner and hopefully locate this throne where it would be more welcome. And again, we don't have a problem. Shaw Main Street's, of who I'm the executive director, doesn't have a problem with the throne. But we've made so much progress at 7th and R that I think we're tempting fate to put the throne there now, after we've had such great success in relocating some of the negative outcomes that we had experienced over there previously.
Hey, Alex, just to correct you, because I think you just misspoke, but you're talking about we've had great success at 7th and T, and you'd like to move the throne to 7th and R-ish.
Sorry, slip of the tongue. Yes,
Perfect.
7th and R would be the preferred location.
Okay, good. So let's do this. And I had reached out, Alex, to Howard Garrett earlier today to share the announcement that came out of Councilmember Nadeau's office. So he is aware, and so I think if you reach out to him, that'd be useful. I think what has been shared, not just on this call, but over the course of the day, as folks have kind of read this news and this announcement, is that the Duke Ellington Plaza is definitively not the right place for a public toilet for lots and lots of reasons, including just respect. I think the second theme has been, Alex, what you had shared, is that through tremendous efforts of a lot of folks here and a lot of the agencies, 7th and T is actually in much better shape than it has been in a very long time. And I think that by putting a throne there with a specified use or audience that's no longer at 7th and T, potentially takes us a step back. And I appreciate your efforts to think about places that would be, more aligned with the demand and the need. It breaks my heart to hear that a really nice and really, important public resource, the lower level of the library, which includes public meeting rooms that are often used, are no longer accessible because of damage. That's going the wrong direction. So maybe what we do is this, 1B, and I will take the lead on the first email. We'll reach out to the council member to ask her to clarify her thinking, and that will be Council Member Nadeau for Ward 1. And then if Alex, you and Howard want to work with Council Member Pinto on appropriate location for a throne in the area, we can, combine our efforts and stay connected and follow the spirit of Mr. Shaw, that we are, in fact, all neighbors, and that we do our work to best when we're doing it together.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool. Frank, thank you for raising. Howard, thank you for your question about where this should appropriately lie, and I will connect with Commissioner Holden on appropriate jurisdiction after. But I know that Francois and I Commissioner Barrio and I were connected to this because of our proximity to the proposed location, and so that's why I think we've got a little bit of a head start. Is there any other new business from the committee? Are there any other items from the audience or the community? Mr. Chauvin.
I won't belabor my time presenting or talking tonight, but Matt, Commissioner, would you mind telling us where further review? I saw a little bit of a summary in your email the last couple days, but with respect to an NMA or a bid, can you just review again where this might be on our forthcoming agendas on this in front of this committee?
100%. Yeah. So, and I know it's something that a lot of folks have been tracking. You all remember, I think, the start of the year, we had presentations from Councilmember Nadeau's office, who presented on her proposed legislation for a neighborhood management authority. We also heard at a follow-up meeting from Quadrangle Development, two individuals who are expert on the formation of bids and have formed a couple of bids in DC, specifically the DuPont Circle bid as well as the downtown bid, both of which are very successful. And the downtown one is actually quite significant. We also heard from Councilmember Pinto, who was proposing a north-south access to a bid structure. Where we landed as a committee and a commission was the passing of a resolution that said we support the formation of a neighborhood management entity. It was agnostic as to a bid or an NMA. But that we were essentially saying that we would very strongly advocate for that formation, for that to be formed along the east-west axis of U Street. Since that resolution was passed, I've had the opportunity to speak with the folks who are leading the conversations on the bid front. They communicated that the north-south axis would be difficult to do given the large number of public buildings that are located on that access and their inability to generate tax revenue to support a bid, that they felt that it would be more viable to develop a bid along the east-west axis. The district law says that a bid application could not be submitted for a certain period of time, and we are in that time. So there's no bid application that can be submitted. I think it is June, July, and August, but it might just be July and August. And so the first chance that they would have to submit a bid application would be going into September and October. And so there is about 60 to 90 days over which that bid activity could come to a head and come together as a proposal. I am meeting with them again in 2 weeks' time after the 4th of July holiday to get an update on their activities. And then the final update I would share is that at our May commission meeting, where Councilmember Nadeau presented her view on the current budget proposal from the mayor's office, she did state that she was still intending to push forward with her legislation on the Neighborhood Management Authority, and that she still had enthusiasm for it. So what I would say is that at this point, we've got two options that are still sitting out there. My own recollection from the conversations is that the business community in particular seemed to resonate more strongly with the bid format than the NMA format. And that is not lost. That feedback is not lost on me as we take our conversations forward. But not knowing the status of either of them and appreciating that we would benefit from a entity, we still haven't drawn the line. So I'm hoping that in our July meeting, we will get a formal update on the bid progress. And then we also had a business roundtable that we hosted on May 22nd. A full month has passed since that, and a lot of things have been going on that have frankly prevented me from being able to revisit that. And Gene Hamza, I see you're on, and I need to talk to you as a follow-up. We'll do that maybe later this week, which I guess tomorrow's Friday, so that's the end of the week. But one of the goals of the business roundtable was to start bringing smaller businesses together, to start identifying their issues and priorities and starting to work with them to advance solutions, but also to advance discussions about the things that they needed to be successful on the U Street corridor. And so again, we need to revisit with that group. It was a great meeting, but I told them we had work to do to earn the right to call them back together again. And I have not done that work to earn the right, and so have some work still to do. So we've got kind of the small business community that we need to continue to make kind of progress with, as well as to get an update on a bid. And I'm hoping to have at least the bid discussion back on the agenda for July.
Thank you.
Great. Any other items, commission or community? Great. Thank you, everybody, for the good discussion on 625. Thank you for all of the input on the 1617. We'll be working on a draft and making some requests specifically of DEMPED here in the next couple of weeks to have them provide some data and information to us. Frank, I'll reach out with the folks, with a council member on the location of the proposed throne, and look for the bid topic to come back again in July as I meet with them in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody. Stay cool. Have a wonderful 4th of July holiday. And if you're in town for the third rescheduling of Shakespeare in the Park, that is now Wednesday, July 2nd, Malcolm X, Meridian Hill Park, 7 p.m. Have a great night. I'll see you all soon.
Thanks very much. See you in the park.
Bye. Adjourning 8:41.